Oh man, I guess I'm doing this. This is going to be kind of fun. If you're joining us on if you're joining us on YouTube or Twitch or whatever, this is going to be a prep session for my Electric Bastionland podcast that we're going to be recording at the start of January. So I just wanted to share what it's like to prep a game of Electric Bastionland, at least how I do it. I'm sure a lot of people do it their own way, whatever they do. But I wanted to kind of go over how I get ready for a game. It's a lot more random and chance, and just kind of show what I do for the characters. I'm also going to share a character questionnaire that I shared with my players over this winter break for them to get into the mind a little bit of their characters. So that's something I'm going to show, and maybe we'll create some stuff. I'm not sure. But first thing I wanted to share is the map that I'm using. Hey, there it is. So Bastionland is this mega city. The time period is kind of like the early 1900s. Electricity is kind of the biggest technological breakthrough, and it's starting to propel society forward in new and unsuspecting ways, kind of like an alternate history kind of vibe. And the way you kind of prepare for it, at least according to the book, is you create your own little borough of this city. And Chris McDowell, the guy who made this role-playing game system, he has a couple of YouTube videos on his YouTube channel detailing this process, and I kind of followed along with that. It's really simple, and it's one of the more exciting ways. I felt it made me very excited to world build. World building is one of those parts of preparing role-playing games that kind of stresses me out, because it feels like it's never done. Feels like I'm never finished making the world. Let's try this. I like this better. So the way he does it is he just says draw, using a color, draw some wavy line that connects a loop. And then using a different color, do another wavy line. And then a couple other different colors that offshoot from that. And each one of these lines represents some kind of transportation or method of getting around the city. So, you could use like a canal or a train system. And what I did is this blue line here that loops through represents the dynamic Hackway, which is where my borough Hackway Heights gets its name. The dynamic Hackway it's essentially, this is my favorite thing I've done, it is basically a bumper cars, taxi bumper cars. So this entire blue line is a track that has like the electric grid above it. It's like a tunnel that's built in, and so there's these hacks, these taxi cabs that are essentially oversized bumper cars that race through this track, and you pay to get on a taxi cab, and it'll take you around the loop. And it's powered by these like electric dynamos, these huge dynamos that power that's why it's called the dynamic Hackway, is because this company created this system. So there's a giant bumper car system that runs through the city. It's kind of the biggest of big deals. The green line is the old rail pedwalk. So it's a defunct train line that has been repurposed as a safe walkway for citizens to travel. So it's literally just walking on train tracks. I got that idea. Here in Chicago, we have something like this. We have a park that was like an old train line that was disused, and then they prettied it up and turned it into this really cool walk that people can go hiking on in the city. So we have that, and then these little offshoots, the pink and the orange line. The pink line is the Travelator, which is a is a moving walkway. So you just stand still, and it takes you to the destination. These were I was doing research. Like the Travelator, I believe is an actual term that they use for these moving walkways. When they were brought about in the like Old World's Fair. There's some really cool images on Google of these black and white images of these really cool moving walkways that they were using at these like science fairs. And the orange line is the Freehold aerial tram. The Freehold aerial tram is like those box cars, those cable cars that go up into mountains. But instead of going up into mountains, they go up into this defunct set of city blocks that were like high rises that no longer have people in them. They're derelict. And so instead of going up into mountains, you're going up into these high-rise buildings, and they're called freehold because there's a lottery system where and this is something I invented for this. There's a lottery system where you can win a building, and people build new homes and hotels just on top of these derelict buildings. So there's these like terrible rubble buildings, and then there's like really nice houses and hotels just like sitting on top of them because people were they couldn't be bothered to actually like repurpose the building or like renovate the building because they're too big, and it's like office spaces and shit like that. So this Freehold aerial tram raises up into those areas for those people who won these lottery tickets that allow them to have a derelict building that they build on. So that's Hackway Heights. That's the map. The what he suggests to do is anywhere where there's like a big curve or an intersection, create a location. I think I probably did way more than I needed to. But it was so much fun that I think I have like 27 points of interest here. So I think I have way more than I needed to do. You could get by with less, way less. And so I created all these different locations, and he has these really cool like spark tables. They're D20 tables where you just roll 2 D20, and then it gives you like an adjective or a description and then a location. So we have a bunch of different places. One of the major kind of factions, I guess, in this borough is the Church of the New Modernity, which is a church that is preaching the gospel of this electric savior. Technology is saving us, and they have these they have the phrase of the church. They have all these posters on the walls in the city. The major phrase of the church is "Believe in the current." So there's that place. There's also I think one of the major battles in Hackway Heights in terms of factions. Let me get some water. One of the major faction battles in Hackway Heights is artists who are kind of considered terrorists. They're trying to subvert, using subversive art, trying to subvert the bureaucracy, the government. And it's kind of between them versus the government and government-sponsored art, which is akin to like propaganda here. And so the artists have kind of become literal terrorists. Like over here on the left, we have the weapon of mass distraction art installation. So that under the pedway, there's this art installation of like guns and muskets that have been embedded into a concrete wall, and they're all pointing towards a radio, because radio is a major way of mass communication and entertainment in my world that I've created. And it's just pointing at a radio that's playing like really crappy sitcoms on the public broadcasting network. So that's kind of how the map works. So you create all these points of interest, and then you kind of describe them in a few sentences. Nothing huge. The way I ran my very first game of Bastionland was I essentially had my players create their characters, which we're going to talk about in a second, and I showed them this map, and I said, pick a place, like pick a location on this map that just sounds cool to you. Like, where do you want to go? And they picked the weapons of mass distraction art installation. And so we went there, and there was like a broadcast in the radio, like one of these artists, like the lead of the terrorist art cell, hacked the broadcast and said they need more people on their side, kind of giving a clue of like, do you want to go look for this? And so they kind of took that into their account. What's really cool about character creation is that the game starts the players off with $10,000 in debt. So like, wherever I start them, if I make it descriptive enough, the players are kind of looking at everything I'm describing as, how can I turn that into money? How can I turn that into something that gets me out of debt? So it really gives them a lot of, what's the word? There's a lot of drive, and they're just active. They're a lot more active instead of waiting for me to present to them a quest. I can just list things, and they go to interact with that, and then that becomes the encounter for the game. If you're thinking of it in like D&D terms, that's the encounter, is how do they engage with something and turn it into possibly money. I mean, we can do quests, and I have done that. You can drop in quests from pretty much any system, any small whatever. You can hack all kinds of stuff up and put it in this game. So it makes it a little bit easier on me, because I'm mostly just reacting to what they think is gonna help them, like what is gonna get them out of their dire straits. So I just kind of list stuff and present them hopefully colorful, textured locations, and then they respond to that by, I don't know, trying to exploit it or trying to see if it's exploitable. It kind of makes my job so much more easier. It really does, because this is the prep. So I had all these locations, and I wrote up a primer. Hopefully my stream doesn't freeze when I switch to this. Great. And so these are all the locations. And so this is my notes. So I have the map. I have descriptions of what these locations are. So I can go to like the paths are. And then I have all the different nodes of interest that I have on here. So some of them aren't as fleshed out as they should be. Like the Greasy Mandolin is a biscuits and gravy joint with low-class bands coming through. It's also kind of like it's in a poorer neighborhood, and it's this kind of communal like place where you can cheaply get sustenance. And it's also used by the terrorist art cells as a hideout underground, right? So, like, that's the Greasy Mandolin. I'm from Kentucky, so I love biscuits and gravy. I don't know if that's the reason why I love it, but I love it. So I wanted to have like a biscuits and gravy place, and it's just like carts of biscuits and gravy that people just like grab as it's passing by. Like, I'm also Japanese, so I'm into like Asian food, and we go to like dim sum. So it's like biscuits and gravy dim sum, which isn't Japanese, but it's Asian, whatever. Yeah, so that's Greasy Mandolin. I noticed in the book there's a lot of use of like canal. There's a lot of jobs based around canals and the water. And with Hackway Heights, my borough, it's kind of separated from the canal. Like the canals never made it through here. They've been stopped, probably by the dynamic people who invented the Hackway, the bumper car taxis. So there's a place called like the Trenchy up here, which is a failed canal that is now a bog of gross fetid water. Think the labyrinths, bog of eternal stench. And there's a local scientist with a grant who studies microbes in the water and how they affect living creatures. So just kind of that stuff. And if people are really interested, I can grab location, describe it. I also have a ton of different people of interest that I use these spark tables in the book to create. Some of them are more interesting than others. Like, again, it's a work in progress. But there's like the Trenchy, which we just talked about. Dr. Elena Toppengale is that scientist that's experimenting down there, and now we have like what it is that she does down there. Meek and shy, Toppengale lives among her experiments, afraid of the complex society of Bastion, hopes to create new forms of life that replace the human ones she feels so disconnected from. Massive wealth left to her by her parents, who, unbeknownst to her, did not die, merely ascended to the living stars during a stay at the Overlook Hotel. That's a lot of detail, but like that gives me something to where like if they go to the Trenchy and I introduce them to this character, I have enough in my head that I can do something with that. Yeah. All right. So I've never been on Twitch before, and I just saw that B Leon commented, and thanks. Yeah, it is a very cool system. They say this is a cool system to design a city. Can't believe I've been sleeping on Electric Bastionland for so long. It is so simple. Like, it frees me up so much. My players, when we play, I've played like Dungeon Crawl Classics and D&D, Call of Cthulhu, Mothership is a good one. But I think with this one, a lot of my players say that it feels like I'm more interactive with the players. Like it feels more like I'm involved instead of being the person deciphering the rules in the book. And that it feels like I'm just kind of the transcriber of what the book says we're supposed to be doing. I feel I'm more free to do stuff. But yeah, these are the characters. Subversive Arts Rebellion, Church of the New. I edited that. That's modernity now. But yeah. So for the podcast that we're going to be doing in January, me on YouTube, the video is up, and on Spotify and all those other places you can find the audio version of it, of the character creation, which isn't like super useful. It's not us really playing the game, it's just us inventing the characters. The character creation, it is slick as hell. It absolutely is. It is so fun. You just don't have to think so much. You don't have to think so much, or you do, because it's more like you're trying to work stuff out, but you're not having to think through the rules, you know. Cool, thanks. Yeah, we Out of Depth is the production company that I'm starting with me and my wife, and we're going to be doing stuff on. Right now, it's primarily role-playing games, but we're going to do stuff on comics and movies, just storytelling in general. And so this is kind of our foray into showing how we storytell with our friends through games. Yeah, I'm really excited about it. Anyways, the character creation was about the players rolling up their stats. So they have 3 stats. I think I can pull that up. Where is that? So they rolled up stats. I don't think I have them on here, but they all came out pretty average. And you can use the stats to kind of determine your class. It's not so much class as it is a failed career, and that failed career gives you starting equipment. So my 3 players that are going to be playing in the game for the show are a failed agricultural saboteur, played by my wife Gail. She said her idea for that, there's not a whole lot more description other than like, you used to do bad things to farms. And so she said she used to salt the fields so that stuff wouldn't grow there. And she's created like a huge backstory to all that stuff. Our second player is a mockery, which is essentially Muppets. And I said that to my players and they couldn't stop saying Muppets. So that was sort of a mistake, but we're going to get them over that. But mockery are essentially felt creatures that have a flair for the theatrical. So we have a player who's is a lizard with a monocle, plays an instrument. I think he chose violin, but that may change. I think he went over a couple of instruments. So that was, and he has like crazy weapons. So then we had it, like, you roll on a chart to see what you start with, and he starts with like a bomb and a knife that's hidden. So he's had to do, like, I'm sure he's doing like a lot of crazy stuff to kind of make that character work. And then our third character, David, is playing a squid bagger, which is a wild creation, a wild career where it says that, like, I don't know, 90% of products in Bastionland are derived from squid related byproducts. So he's not doing that anymore, and he is like he wishes he was like he has a mystical tarot deck that he doesn't know how to use, but he wants to be a fortune reader. So those are my characters. Over the course of that character creation, we then kind of tried to figure out, how do these 3 characters share this debt of $10,000? And the person that they share to, and this was like another chart derivative from the game, is this mockery shark named Mr. Dick, who will keep them from ever seeing the ocean again. Like, they can't get on the water. And so they're kind of trapped here, which is kind of perfect for them to start in Hackway Heights because it's really landlocked. So I was like, how did you guys get involved with that? And through the course of that session, they eventually came around the idea that they were all in prison for something. And we're kind of parsing that out. And so they're all in prison for something, and Mr. Dick, this mock shark, paid for their release for $10,000. So now they owe him their freedom, and he's essentially making them, because they all seem to have skills that are aggressive. Like, we got a felt mockery who has bombs and hidden knives, and we have this agricultural saboteur, and we have a squid bagger, which we're still figuring out how that works into it. I think he's a little bit more conniving, so he's the charisma character of the group. He's going to use them as muscle or doing dirty jobs to pay off their $10,000 debt. So that's kind of where this game is going to begin when we start. So we recorded that a week ago, maybe a week and a half ago, and during that time I sent them this questionnaire. Let's pull up, I want that in like that. So I sent them this questionnaire, It's just six questions. And I like to do questionnaires because they allow players to kind of dig into the character a little bit. They don't have to be super deep. It also gives them a little bit more focus instead of, I know a lot of systems kind of go like, you can write up a backstory, and then players sometimes just like write out, like they don't know where to start. So then they just write out these huge long ones, or they write out really short ones that are just kind of like, I'm a hermit. I have no family. I have no friends. So instead of doing that, I try to make kind of vague but specific questions that allow people room, but kind of direct them towards something tangible in their memories. There's a really great game called Dread, where it's a horror game. It's a horror survival game that's only played with a Jenga tower. And anytime your character does something on duress or something that is stressful to do, they pull a block from the Jenga tower and set it on top. They play Jenga, and if you make the tower fall, you die. It's a really fun game, but character creation for that is like a list of these questions that kind of direct you into the character. So like if we're playing a game in a cabin with like cliche 80s characters and somebody's the jock, the questions are like, you know, what sport did you just get suspended from? Right? That's kind of vague, but it's very specific. It's that weird, you know, the person can come up with the reason they were suspended. They can come up with a sport, but it also lets them know, it informs them, you play a sport. So I really loved how that worked, because you could also see what made players, what questions, what subjects the players got really interested in, like what excited them, and which one they were like, football, bad grades. So if they said like football, bad grades, I'm like, all right, that's not so interesting to them. But if some of the other questions elicited a longer response, I would know like, okay, that's where they're really excited about playing the character. So we have 6 questions, nothing crazy, because we're only playing this for 12 episodes, and then we're going to play something else. And we may come back to this, but I'm kind of hiring them. You play a sport and you got into trouble and you're probably feeling weird and you might have a secret from your friends. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, there's so much loaded questions. That's really leading questions. Leading questions. It's just leading enough to give them something to do. But they have the freedom to do what they want, really. So the first question is, what's something you had when you were young that you missed? What happened to it? I've gotten some interesting responses so far. I don't think I have any of them available right now to share. I wish I did. But, oh no. Okay, so this question, what's something you had when you were young that you missed? What happened to it? This question led to my player David asked me what sports exist in Bastionland. And I had never thought of that. And so I just chose like soccer, baseball, and then basketball is new. And I said, but if you want to come up with something that you want, then you can do that. And he said, okay. And he has sent me 2 emails describing a game he invented called INKBALL. I might need to pull this up. I don't know. Let's see if I can pull this up. It's crazy. He described this game. He thought about it for like a day and a half, maybe 2 days, and he sent me like a couple of emails like describing like really detailed stuff about this. So where is it? He said, here we go. I want to get this text copied. All right. This is what he sent me. This is so ridiculous. INKBALL, 3 teams of 3 players each pass an ink-soaked ball or sea sponge and try to score by covering their opponent's ink blot with as much ink as possible. The team whose ink blot is covered with the least amount of ink when time expires wins. Ink blots are large tarps or sheets that are hung tightly by 4 corners. The game is played on a triangle-shaped court, with the ink blots hung centered on each side of the triangle. Alliances are often formed between the 2 teams that are currently losing, but they shift constantly as the game progresses. The game is comprised of 20 5-minute periods. Every 5 minutes, there is a short timeout as the ink ball is soaked in ink, and players can be swapped out with 2 additional players who are on the bench. So you have like 5-person teams, only 3 are on the court, the ink ball court at a time. Tackling is not allowed, but it is a very physical game. INKBALL was invented by squidbaggers. He was the squidbagger career about 30 years ago and is extremely popular among sailors and squidbaggers, but has gained some popularity outside of the seafaring community. Originally, it was played with an ink-soaked sea sponge as the ball, but there's now a standard ink ball that's used in league games. But if you go to the dock, squidbaggers still play with fresh sea sponge as the ink ball, the OGs. That's what he sent me. And the reason he created this, because I was like, this is amazing. And then he sent me more. He sent me more rules. Let me copy and paste that stuff. This is so good. It's important to note that there are no time stoppages in the 5-minute periods, even for injury. Any penalties during the period are applied to the next period. A severe penalty might be around 3 minutes, meaning that the penalized team would be down the player for the first 3 minutes of the period, but the penalized team can choose to divide that penalty between the players, having one player sit out for 2 minutes, another one sit out for 1, for example. The last period is the only period where time stoppage can occur, as penalties have to be called on the spot since there's no future period to apply the penalty. Every 5 periods, so any period ending in a 5 or a 0, remember there's 20, are known as splatter rounds. There are 2 ink balls in play for those periods. The last period of every game is a splatter round, which can lead to some epic comebacks. And I said, this is amazing. I'm trying to figure out how to run it mechanically through the dice. Like, I want to be able to have this as an option for players to be able to go like, let's go play some ink ball. And he said this entire idea came from what's something you had when you were young that you miss. And he misses his like OG ink ball, like I guess his first ink ball. And so that one question invented this game. And I'm not saying that that'll happen every time. If you're wanting to run this game, that'll happen every time you ask these crazy games, but it can. That's why you do it. So great. I'm so lucky to have him as a player. So we have what happened to it. Why did you start your failed career? That's kind of, just something to kind of link them to that career, why they even started it. 3 is a question that links them to Hackway. It gives them a little bit of lore, a little world building. So the prison in Hackway Heights is called the Horticultural Reformatory Park. This is a park that is like all flowers, and the flowers and vines are wrapping up prison cells. So there's these atriums and all this stuff, and the prisoners are the people who take care of the flowers, and this is how they're reformed. So they're taught to care for a variety of flora and fauna enjoyed by countless citizens who walk through. So like you can freely walk through this park and see these prisoners working on lilies and magnolias. And there's fragrant lotions and oils worn by wealthy people that are made from the petals you clip at the factory nearby. That's another location that was developed the last time we played this game. So the question is, what scent made you forget you were a prisoner? And if they wanted to make up a flower, or it doesn't even have to be a flower, they could say like, I don't know, the popcorn guy selling popcorn made them forget. Or maybe it's a scent that they never got to smell while they were in prison. So that's that question. Mr. Dick, the mock shark that paid for the release from prison, you know you have to work off the debt. You'll never truly be free. What does freedom look like to you? So now we have to have like a question that is, so instead of a past question, I want a future question of what are we working towards? Like, yeah, $10,000 in debt, but like once you pay off that debt, when is your character like done? When are they satisfied? So that's what that, it also gets them thinking about linking Mr. Dick to their lack of freedom now that they're out of prison. Thank you. It is, yeah, Dread is fire. It's really good. Yeah. Let's see, where was I? 5. Describe a time you did something embarrassing, but no one was around to see it. Gail, who is the agricultural saboteur, was talking about like a time her character was like interested in a guy, and it made her not pay attention to what she was doing. I can't remember how that story went, but it was like she kind of fucked up her job. That was funny, but like I like this because some of this stuff gets a little dire. I don't want the game, like the game's not like a downer of a game. It can be, but it's, I mean, we're also dealing with Muppets, right? So I didn't want them to get too locked into like the dregs of living underneath this like industrious bureaucratical city. I wanted them to have something kind of funny. Yeah, something kind of funny about them, just to lighten the mood. And then the 6th question is, which of your traits are you most proud of? So, I think the reason I put this in here, my background is acting, and one of the lessons that I learned was that sometimes when you're making a character and you're trying to do these like dramatic scenes, you make a character that is like flawed or edgy, and like they kind of don't like themselves, and they don't. And it's just to kind of get into that headspace. But I had a acting teacher say like you have to have something that you're working towards, and you have to have something that you're proud of. You have to have something that you believe you can do better, because nobody wants to watch somebody just be miserable. There has to be something active about them. They have to want something better for themselves because they deserve it, right? Or they've earned it. So that's why I had the question, like, what does freedom look like? So now they have something to build towards, something to activate them, something to feel like they can fight for. And then what the trait is that you're most proud of, this strengthens that supports their desire to fight for freedom, right? Is they have something inside of them that they're like, I'm not going to let anybody devalue that part of me. I might be a flawed character, right? I might be a wretch, but there's something inside of me that I'm like, but you can't take that away from me. That's what makes I think that kind of stuff makes a good character. I said 6 questions. I haven't gotten all my questionnaires back, but so far what I've gotten has been, I mean, the INKBALL thing alone is gold. It's gold. Yeah. So let's see. This is what else do I got? So we did that. So the character question, thanks to B Leon for coming in. I really appreciate it. That was really cool. Thank you so much for commenting. That was crazy. I've never experienced any of this before. You're the first person I've ever spoken to on Twitch. It's wild. Thank you so much for everything. That was cool. So for the character creation stuff, we we had some questions like, what are the cities? Like, what are the oceans? Let's put ran out of music. Cool. There was a big question about the oceans. I don't know. I didn't have anything written about the oceans. I had no idea. So I need to come up with ocean and why Hackway Heights doesn't have a canal that connects it. And I want to place those things. So we'll start with, let's get a new page going. The ocean is, so there's obviously a squid industry. There is wraps around the eastern and northern coasts of Bastion. Crossing the ocean. The ocean. Something that's in the book that I really like. I can't remember the exact wording of it, but it was like, hey, some of the, like, there's always like an other that Bastionland is like, there's an enemy. So the ocean separates Bastion from a rival city. So it's like a canal, maybe. I'm already digging myself deeper now. Now I have to come up with another city. It's 12 episodes. There's no way my characters are gonna go to the other city. They probably will. I don't know. Maybe that'll be a problem for another day. But there's a rival city. Water from the ocean. Canals are dug. I'm not really sure what you created, what the term for that, the proper term verbiage for how you build a canal is, and filled with this ocean water. So we have an ocean. I need a name for it. You know what? Because Leon is the first person to ever interact with any of this stuff that we're doing, we're going to name it after Leon. Yeah. Leon Ocean. There it is. Done. Why not? So canals are dug, filled with this ocean water. But then these canals connect vital parts of the city, but not Hackway Heights, my borough. So that, let's raise this up a little bit. But not Hackway Heights. So, okay, we have a little bit of the ocean. There's squid industry. Wraps around the eastern and northern. So we're going to say Hackway Heights is like the south side of the city. Right? I think that makes sense. So why no canals in Hackway Heights. Okay, so no canals in Hackway Heights. They were started, but they were stopped. Dynamic Industries, who invented the Hackway, and if you're joining us, if you're watching, the Hackway is a giant bumper car track that is used, like each bumper car is like an oversized bumper car that serves as a taxi. And so people get on the Hackway, which has like the metal cage that the bumper cars use to become electrified, and they race through this kind of tunnel, this dynamic Hackway. And so Dynamic Industries invented this. So Dynamic Industries stopped canal production to ensure the reliance on the Hackway. Yeah. So there's a problem, right? Maybe the players come across this problem. Maybe they don't. I think they are, because I'm trying to figure out what the first session is going to be, because they're going to have to start a job for this Mr. Dick character. So, yeah. So they're going to start this. They're going to start a job. So the first session. So we have Mr. Dick. What does Mr. Dick want? I think he's contained to Hackway, and he wants these canals restarted. Yeah. So he's using his like nefarious mafia-esque methodology of trying to supersede Dynamic Industries, which is a huge corporation, a major corporation in the city. So he's trying to undercut them, which is probably very dangerous for him, which is why he's sending our characters to do some of this dirty work. They're just meat. They're just human meat. Or in the case of one of the characters, mock lizard meat that like he sends out to do the jobs. So our first job for the first session. And if you want to listen to the podcast when we record this and you want to be surprised, you may not want to hear this part, but I love sharing. I love sharing what I'm going to do to players. And I don't know. I think it'd be fun to be in on the joke before they're in on it. This is the big idea that I have for the very first session. Because they're $10,000 in debt. Their first job, the very first session that we're going to do, we're going to start with our players are tasked with accompanying a member of Mr. Dick's gang. Our players are tasked with accompanying a member of Mr. Dick's gang to a meeting, and we saw on the map that we're doing here, right? We have these blocks of derelict buildings in that location, the freehold area. So the first meeting will take place in the like first floor of one of these ruined buildings. Yeah. To a meeting in Freehold. The meeting is a payoff to a high-ranking official who can possibly get the canals started back up. Right? So they're paying him under the table. So they accompany the, you know, the member of Mr. Dick's gang. Mr. Dick's not going. He wouldn't go himself. To a meeting in Freehold. The meeting is a payoff to a high-ranking official who can possibly get the canal development started. The players are probably ignorant of all of this. They're just muscle, right? They've got their weapons. They got a pitchfork. They got a squid bagger hook. They got a bomb. I'm sure that's not going to come into play. So they're like a little Suicide Squad. And they don't know the job. They know that they just have to protect this guy with the money bag. So then we need a complication. Some kind of complication that they have to deal with. I've been thinking about No Country for Old Men. And what if we say the gang member and the official go into a room, all the muscle has to stay outside. Right? It's like, hey, this is a gentleman meeting. So the official has like 2 bodyguards, and the gang member has our 3 players. They have to stay outside in the lobby or whatever. And they go into a room. And so now we have like a situation where my players are probably going to be thinking about, how can we ensure the safety of our guy? How do we deal with these? Hopefully nothing goes wrong. So maybe they're going to think of like, how do we case the joint? How do we make sure that like it's secure? But once those 2 guys go into the room, and we get a little role play maybe between the players and the bodyguards, there's going to be an explosion. And the gang member and the official will be dead. And the players will have to make a decision, because they're going to have the bodyguards. So there might be a combat here between the players and these bodyguards. Maybe not. Maybe they'll be able to talk these bodyguards out of it. But the money is still in the bag. This is Mr. Dick's money. So our characters are $10,000 in debt. $10,000 in debt. Do we want to go big? It's 12 episodes. Do we want to go big? I want to make it a problem. I was watching A Simple Plan the other night for date night with Gail. And if you've never seen the movie, it's Billy Bob Thornton. Who is it? Billy Bob Thornton. And, the guy from Twister, who passed away not too long ago. Bill Paxton. That's it. Bill Paxton, Billy Bob Thornton, and another cat, Brent Briscoe, are 3 dudes in, I think, Wisconsin. maybe Minnesota. And they stumble upon a crashed airplane with $4.4 million in it. And they decide to keep it and not report the airplane, sort of. And the whole movie is about what a fucking disaster of a decision that was. And I think that's what I want this to be. So we're going to say this is like a first payment, so it's not going to be $1 million. But it's like a monthly tithe to this official. Say 20, double their debt. $20,000. So now the characters have a huge choice. They have Mr. Dick's money. They owe him $10,000. They can't just take this money and give it to him and buy their freedom back. He's not going to give it up. That's what they don't know. Is once they work it off, he's just going to eliminate them. Right? Because they will have done probably bad things for him. They're disposable. They're not good people. They can't get out from under him. Right? They can either just keep working or be eliminated. They'll know where the bodies are hidden, right? Can't let them go. Never let them go. So there is no getting free. And they can't pay him back with his own money. So now they'll have a choice, and now we'll get the role play between the players saying, all right, do we take this money and run? At which point maybe we do end up going to the ocean. Or do we take it back to our benefactor? Do we take it back to our benefactor and stay in his good graces until we figure another way out? And to me, 20,000. Something I really liked about Simple Plan is that it's three guys, and the number was 4.4 million, which does not split very well three ways. They never really talk about it because they go, how does that? They say it once when they count the money and they realize it's $4.4 million. They say, how does that split three ways? And Bill Paxton's character, who's the only one who went to college, says, I don't know, about 1 and a half each. But that's the last time they ever mention it. But it doesn't split 1 and a half each way. That's too much money. So I love that little. So 320 doesn't split three ways. And 10 doesn't split three ways evenly. It's 9999, right? Yeah. All right. So this is going to be the first session. And I think that's going to set the course for the other 11 episodes. The other 11 sessions is what do you do with $20,000 of stolen money from one of the most powerful mafia characters in the borough? Where are you going to go? Where are you going to hide? We do have some questions to answer, though. Who blew up the meeting? That's a third party, right? Now, it'd be funny if I was just like, they kind of just killed each other, right? They had extra guys and whatever. But what if I introduce a third? Somebody from the underground. I think. In Bastionland, Chris McDowell, who's created the game, has the Deep Country, which is the place outside of Bastion, the Living Stars, which is the place above it, and the Underground, which is called, it has a specific name, I always forget these names. It is the Underground. It's just the Underground. There it is. Deep Country. Bastion is the city. Deep Country is the boonies outside, and then there's the Underground. And I've been working on the Underground a little bit. So what if we do the Underground? There we go. Somebody from the Underground. This might work. Some creature from the Underground. What do I have about the Underground? Something from the Underground does not want the canals to happen. What is it? I mean, yeah, we could do quantum or the dynamic industries. We could also do some creature under, and this just complicates things. I like it messy. It doesn't have to be so clean cut as that side and that side. There should be a third party. I think it's going to be robots. Yeah. Mechanical creatures below trying to stay dry. And the canal could become automatons, right? We could do automatons. I kind of like that. And maybe that moves them into the Underground. Maybe there's like a hole. There's the decision, right? They can run or they can go into the hole, which may be where whatever ruined the meeting came from. So maybe they go in the Underground. And then that'll be kind of the big decision of the session. And I think that'll get me through session 1. I think that's enough to get me through one session, and then whatever decision they make, I can just react to that. That's what's so great about the system. Okay. I feel really positive about what we got done today. If you are... I'd like to do this more. This is kind of fun. Gail and I are probably going to do a stream going over the movies that we watched this last year, because movies are really important to us. Like I said, we like to talk about stories and how just stories in general. And I watched a ton of movies this year, and I kind of wanted to go over the list, and I thought it'd be kind of fun to talk about what we watched and take that in. So we're probably going to do a stream at some point about movies, the movies that we watched. And then we're going to start the podcast in a week and a half, I think. Week and a half, maybe 2 weeks. And that'll go up. We're debating live streaming it. But it'll go up probably on Twitch, YouTube, and then an edited, nicer audio, maybe a little more sweetened audio version will be up on all the podcast sites. So we'd like to try and do more of this if this is something you all are If anybody watching this after the fact is interested, then absolutely hit us up through one of the different avenues. I think we're on all the social media. I don't engage with social media very much, so it's not perfect. You're probably not going to get a lot out of us, but if you reach out to us, then I'm sure we're going to get back to you. So if you enjoyed this, we'll probably do more of it. But I wanted to be able to give you guys a look at like how easy it is to prep for this game. More importantly, in that you could prep for this game too. It's not hard. And then the cost of entry for Electric Bastionland in particular is really low for you and your friends. They don't have to learn a whole lot of spells, you know. You don't have to put the kitty gloves on with them and be like, hey, why don't you play a barbarian? That's kind of the easiest class to play or something like that. You can just, they're playing themselves, and it could be, I think Electric Bastionland might be a better gateway RPG than D&D, which is kind of like the one that everybody goes to because it's the most popular. And then once they play that, they kind of reach out to other ones. I think we're kind of going about it backwards. Like, we should have something that has this rules light system that we can get our players and our friends engaged with. They don't have to buy 3 books and all the supplements, and they don't have to read the Unearthed Arcana. They can just... What I love about this book is I can describe how to play it to my friends without them ever even having to read the book. They don't even have to buy it. I can just say, this is how it's played. This is what you do. This is what these stats mean. So you tell me what you want to do, and I'll tell you if it happens or not. And we'll use the dice to determine whether or not it happens. Easy. God, easy. So much easier. Games like this should be promoted a little bit more to get new people interested in role-playing games, because I've used it, and I've gotten a lot of people on board with playing games based off of this. Games like this, Mothership. Yeah. Anyway, that's this. I think we're done. There's an hour and 15 hour of work and kind of showing a little bit of prep. You don't have to do as much as I did here. This has been stuff I've been working on for a long period of time. You can just do a little bit, and then you get to just react to what your players want to do. All right, I think that is it. Thanks to anybody who watched. Holy shit. I couldn't believe I got even one person, and like one person who commented. I had a conversation with somebody. That was great. Maybe this is something we'll want to do in the future. Definitely fulfilling. All right. Thanks again. We're Out of Depth. You can see us at getoutofdepth.com. We got a Patreon, which is ridiculous, but we decided to go ahead and put it up just in case anybody sees it and feels compelled. But you know, maybe that'll be more useful whenever the podcast starts and people feel like they want to support us that way. But it's helpful. And if you're interested in Electric Bastionland, you can go to Bastionland Press. I have nothing to do with Bastionland at all. I don't know the guy who made it. I just really dig the work he did. And Gail and I are not into protest. We're into promoting. We want to promote the good shit in this world. And to me, this is one of the good ones. So if you enjoyed this, thanks. If you didn't, sorry. Do better next time, I guess. But have a pleasant day. Find a friend. Tell a story. Tell stories with people. That's how we get to know each other. That's how we get to know more about one another. Have fun.